Greetings, everybody. This is Aaron the Pedantic, and today I have a potentially hot take, I suppose, or an agreement to a hot take that a lot of people really did not take very kindly to. So basically, for those who don't know, I am pretty active on Twitter, probably too active for my own good. And somebody made a tweet that got a whole lot of people very upset. So what the tweet said was, "We don't care about your homebrew world. We know that you've spent all this time on it, but we just don't care." And a lot of people got really upset. And it's funny because the nature of these kinds of hot takes, you have people that are passionately for the take, people that are passionately against the take, not a whole lot of middle ground. So I suppose am in the minority here, because whenever I saw that, I was like, yeah, this makes perfect sense. And a lot of people that were on the opposing side had a lot of very interesting straw men that they were, well, not really straw men, but very poor arguments that they were suggesting. So let me go ahead and dismantle those, or at least try to. So one of the things that people were suggesting is, well, if nobody cares about your homebrew world, then what about all of the successful Kickstarters and all this kind of stuff where you can buy these worlds that have been created and they are homebrew? Well, here's the thing about that. So first off, whenever you're including, I'll just go ahead and do it. Whenever you're including worlds that are rather mainstream in some capacity, they have some kind of media that you consume that is within that world, then it makes perfect sense that people would care about that world. So this would be if it's a book, maybe, so Dragonlance is a clear thing there. It could be that it's a video game series. So there are a lot of people that have played the D&D Forgotten Realms video games like Demon's Stone, Baldur's Gate, all that kind of stuff. It could be any number of things. Dragon Age RPG. Like that's taking place in the world of Dragon Age that a lot of people are in love with because it's a video game that they have had the opportunity to play in. So that's part number one. Part number two is if you have players that are playing in this homebrew world. So you have to have some kind of point of interactivity within the world for you to have this kind of investment that they're talking about. When the context that's being presented is people just talking about their homebrew worlds, so just a casual interaction with somebody, and then they start telling you about their world. Now, this can be interesting. It can be interesting if they are presenting some kind of elements that you can use, elements that you can use for your game. So this is, for instance, the example I provided was, what if I were to tell somebody, so the world that I have created has these pockets of ethereal disturbance areas that wizards are constantly fighting for because it makes magic just go crazy, and they're able to heighten their powers massively. So then somebody might say, well, that sounds like a really cool concept. I'd love to play with that. Versus me explaining how it came to be that happened, or who all of the different wizards that are fighting are and what's the deal with them. All that kind of stuff people just aren't going to care about. If they do, then there's people like that out there. I'll give you that. There are people like that out there. But I think that they are very, very overstated, especially compared to the response that this guy got. I think that really the biggest thing is that there is a desire within the, I'm going to use the word, community of creators, that to have everybody just be incredibly supportive. This is basically to be like, yeah, you get it. Good job. Keep working. And it's not a bad thing at all. I'm not even going to say inherently. It's not a bad thing at all. But I think that it does create a false sense of appreciation. So what I mean by that is that people are going to see this stuff transpiring. They're going to see people saying, "Oh yeah, I love what you've shared here," and all this kind of stuff. And if they're not mining it for ideas, if they're for their own game, if they're not playing in that game, if they're not consuming some kind of media with that game world, then to me it just seems like they're just kind of coddling. That's what it just seems like. They're coddling. They're just trying to be a good friend. They're just trying to be supportive. So call me a cynical asshole. I am one. In a lot of ways, I am a cynical asshole. But I completely agree with this take. It's really just kind of the same concept as let me tell you about my character. I don't care about your character. Like, unless your character is playing in my game, or unless your character is part of a piece of media that I'm interested in, I don't care about your character. Maybe I care about something that you did with your character that I might be able to use for something else. That is why I might care about your character. So I put all these distinctions together to explain this is why, even though I loved Shalt, if it was just basically, somebody telling me, okay, so there's this city and it's like this or whatever, that I wouldn't want to just know more about the city necessarily. I would want to know more about what I could do with it, So if Vendra was telling me about Jalette, and then I really don't care what the people in charge, what their family structure is, what their history is. I don't care about the deities of the world unless there's something really useful that I can glean from them. So really, the more you consume in this kind of genre, the less you care about something that doesn't stand out. So this is why, I really love a lot of basic fantasy stuff. Not like brand name basic fantasy, but I'm not saying that that's not good. I just haven't looked at it. But I love the kind of generic fantasy stuff to a degree, but I've been spoon fed it my entire life, so the more I see it, the more I just don't care unless there's just some kind of really awesome new thing that they're doing with it. So that's basically my thing. People were very upset about this, and I think that they're just either maybe they're just these anomalies that sit down and just love reading about other people's worlds for no other reason than the fact that they love reading about worlds, I guess. Maybe that exists, but I just don't understand the rationale. There are very enjoyable types of fiction that you can engage in that you actually are going to have some kind of merit in what you can use them for. You can, like I said, you can use these things for inspiration. Fine, perfectly fine. But there's nothing inherently interesting about a setting. And I think that that's an important distinction. So if you're going to tell me about your setting, then make sure that you're trying to push something that sets it apart, that makes it something that I could do something interesting with that I might not be able to do otherwise. Most of our games don't require this. If you're running this kind of like generic fantasy world, like I was just mentioning, then a lot of times you're just using tropes. Tropes are overused by definition. They're just constantly there. And you know what? They're still interesting. But the reason that they're still interesting is because you're engaging with them as a player, as a dungeon master. You're doing stuff with them and they're getting to experience them. That's the difference. Whenever you're just reading a data dump, you're not really engaging with the material. You're just basically seeing the recipe for what could be a great product in the end. Every book that you get that is game material is unfinished. So I don't agree with them on this whole thing where it's wrong to say that we don't care about what your homebrew is. I wholeheartedly reject the whole, well, everything is homebrew, blah, 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 blah. It's like, well, everything had to be made by somebody, but there are some very philosophical differences between something that is homebrew, that's built specifically for a table, versus something that is meant to be, consumed commercially or by people that, aren't at your table. There is a pretty big difference. And, I would know that because I've made a few things for other people to consume. And, yeah, I mean, I think some of it also is just to have a great exercise in defending world building. And world building is a tool to be used, and it does great things if you have the kinds of players that want to get deep into your world. But it doesn't even you don't even have to really do it, at least not to a great degree. I mean, you can go a long way by just doing some very basic broad stroke stuff and then filling in the blanks whenever it's necessary. Most of the campaigns that I have run in my life, I did it from session to session. And I think that most DMs probably do that too, to some degree. Whenever I'm doing a sandbox game, I have to put more thought into it. But even then, you have tools at your disposal to put the little borders around and make sure that if they start going outside of those borders, you say, hold on, this is next session territory. So this means that let's stay within this border for the moment, and then we'll get to that stuff later. Or you just call it the end of the session. And then that way you can continue everything. World building helps you make sure everything will be cohesive and not, contrast so much that it becomes jarring. But is it necessary? Is it required? No. Is there some kind of inherent greatness to world building? No. And in fact, a lot of world building is just not interesting. It's what you do with it. It's what do you do with these elements? How do you use them? What do the people do inside of this world, around the players, around the characters? That's what's important. And people just don't seem to be understanding that. So that is it for today. Like I said, I'm pretty sure this will probably irritate some people, especially people that do, put their work out there to be seen. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Like I said, if it's something that I can take and use inspiration from in order to build something that's awesome, then it's a worthwhile endeavor. And thank you for doing it. There are a lot of people that do that, and I appreciate it. But, let me tell you about my setting. Let me tell you about my character. I just don't care. Peace out.